So I grew up really poor, and my father was unemployed and unemployable my whole life. My mum, I was dying of cancer, and it was in the days when there weren't the support mechanisms that there are today. So we were on welfare, and I just didn't want that for myself. When I kind of voiced that, it didn't go down very well because my family and friends would say, "Well, who the hell are you? Where's your ambition coming from? How dare you think that you're better than the rest of us?" When I was I was in my teenage years and I was in the wrong place, wrong time. So I was in a place where they hated the English. And so I was a target for the bullies, and I was a bit stupid as a teenager. Instead of walking away, I'd fight. And so I became a bigger target and a bigger target. And in the end, I just hid in the library to avoid being bullied. And these people were too stupid to ever go to a library. So I was safe in there. And I just started reading biographies, basically. And in these biographies, there's a point in your life where you say, enough is enough. And I'm no longer going to be influenced by my family's poor opinion of me or my colleagues' hatred of me. I'm not going to listen to the name calling. I'm not going to fight back anymore. I'm just going to go and do my thing.
Trevor Blake is what you would call an exited founder, but his story is all but usual hustle and burnout kind of story. He successfully built more than five businesses and he has been able to sell some of them for over $300 million. And all of this by working less than 5 hours per day. How? By building what he calls the three simple steps. Keep watching the interview as we dive into the art of success with balance. All right. Welcome back to the Founders Bible. Today we are with Trevor G. Blake. How's it going? Where are you right now?
It's going fantastic. I am in Vancouver, Canada, which I have fallen in love with. It's a beautiful city, melting pot of people from all over the world. I am slowly eating my way through the city, one restaurant at a time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we have so much to cover in this conversation. I'm big fan of your books and your story. So for anyone that ever read or watched anything about you, this is going to be a very interesting conversation. But let me start breaking the ice with the classical question: why the heck are you a founder? Why are you so crazy that you started this journey on your own?
I think entrepreneurs are not born; they're made by the fact that we want to fix something. So every good entrepreneur I've met, came across something that really irritated them, and they said, "Okay, where's the fix? Where's the solution?" They couldn't find it, so they say, "I'm going to do this myself." And they become entrepreneurs by default. And I've done the same thing. I found things to fix. I don't have any natural talent. I certainly never set out to be an entrepreneur. There were things that I felt that kept me awake at night. Like, this needs to be fixed, and this is wrong. And so in the end, it comes down to oneself. Is like, well, no one else is going to fix it. I better fix it myself. And then we kind of become entrepreneurs by default, even though at the beginning, everyone who's an entrepreneur or is about to become an entrepreneur knows, we have no idea what we're doing at the beginning. No idea. But we figure it out because we're smart. Everyone's smart.
Wonderful. Well, here at the Founder Bible, I love to talk about the hidden story behind the success story, especially when it comes to pain and the resilience that had to be gone through in order to get to the success story. We always talk about the tip of the iceberg, right? Everybody's good about marketing and sales and fundraising rounds, whatever. What has been your journey, and especially from the lens of like the walls that you hit with your face, that you smashed hard rock? What has been the journey over there?
So So I grew up really poor, and everyone. I think a lot of people say that because it's like a social. It's sort of cool, right, to say you grew up poor. But I did. My father was unemployed and unemployable my whole life. My mum, I was dying of cancer, and it was in the days when there weren't the support mechanisms that there are today. So we were on welfare, and I just didn't want that for myself. And when I kind of voiced that, it didn't go down very well because my family and friends would say, "Well, who the hell are you? Where's your ambition coming from? How dare you think that you're better than the rest of us?" And that wasn't what I was trying to do. I was just saying, my school offered me, they said, okay, the best thing we can suggest to you is that you become an apprentice manager in a chicken packing factory. That was it. That's how they saw me. And I said, but I don't want that for me. I want something a little bit more exciting. I like chickens, don't get me wrong. I love chicken, but I don't, not that much. So I want to have a life of adventure. I want to travel. I want to do all these kind of things. So I think we set out as we just want more, and that's okay. And then we have to prepare for the fact by wanting more, it's going to separate us from the rest of the crowd, and so we suddenly start to look a little bit weird and a little bit different, and everybody immediately starts to criticize us and try to pull us back to the quicksand and all that kind of stuff. But we just keep going, and if we're smart enough, we just kind of go a bit blind and just keep going. I'm going for this. So I had this great life of adventure and travel because growing up poor, I was never able to have a vacation or anything like that. So I wanted to travel, enjoyed that thoroughly. And then I got to around about the age of 39 and suddenly realized that I need to grow up a little bit. And that's when I decided to start my first company. So I've built 7 companies. I've sold 5. I'm in the process of selling to the last 2. And then I'm going to go and do something completely different. And so that's been my life. Basically, it's been a life of adventure, but only because I've decided to have that for me. And it is a little selfish. It is a little self-fulfilling in a way. But I didn't want to be an apprentice manager in a chicken packing factory. Simple as that. I wanted to do something and make an impact. I wanted to make a difference. And so that's been my life of adventure. It's been fantastic. I have had such a blast. I have had so much fun that I feel almost guilty about it. So when I come on these podcasts, it's not for me to say, aren't I brilliant? Or it's not for me to say, buy my book or go to my website or any of this crap that people do. It's for me to say, if I can do this, literally anybody can do this. And I encourage everybody to say, you know what? I'm not putting up with this anymore. I came into this incarnation, I came into this life to make a difference. I came into this life to have fun. I'm not putting up with this crap anymore. And I'm going to change that.
Wonderful. Well, the just for the clarification, your book is the 3 simple steps. I'm not interviewing necessarily for that. At the Founder Bible, I really love to hear the stories of the founders per se. And there's one thing that I loved because I did read the book actually before the interview. Not I read it unknowingly that we were going to have a podcast at some point. So that's a cool kind of a realization afterwards. But there's something at the beginning, especially when you were talking about the shield that you started to build for yourself within your mindset. Like nobody could. I think there's in another book quite popular among founders was like the kind of a unfuckability something shield, so nobody can really touch you. I think it's key for anyone at the stage where they haven't developed it yet and they do feel they're different, because I want to always remind 3 out of 4 founders are neurodiverse. That's like statistics out there, very clear. And my working thesis is that we are so different, we grow up so differently, that we carry around so much trauma from childhood and let alone previous life, but that's a different conversation. And you literally have to drag this bag of rocks with you so much, so long. How did you get rid of them?
So I was, when I was probably, I was in my teenage years and I was in the wrong place, wrong time. So I was in a place where they hated the English. And so I was a target for the bullies, and I was a bit stupid as a teenager. Instead of walking away, I'd fight. And so I became a bigger target and a bigger target. And in the end, I just hid in the library to avoid being bullied. And these people were too stupid to ever go to a library. So I was safe in there. And I just started reading biographies, basically. And in these biographies, this is the information I got, in that there's a point in your life where you say enough is enough. And I'm no longer going to be influenced by my family's poor opinion of me or my colleagues' hatred of me. I'm not going to listen to the name calling. I'm not going to fight back anymore. I'm just going to go and do my thing. And I got that from biographies from people like Henry Ford, who had suffered a terrible childhood. Imagine CJ Walker suffered a terrible childhood. I mean, imagine being and I apologize if I use the politically incorrect words. I'm out of touch with what's correct and what's not. But imagine being a Black American woman who's born to slaves, who's not allowed to work once supposed freedom comes in, who's not allowed to own a knife and fork because they're considered weapons, who is forced to marry at 14 because you're going to starve. She marries a guy who his only job can be working on in agriculture, and he's a bit of a brute, and he beats her up, and she has a terrible life. Imagine being her and then saying enough is enough. And then she goes on to become America's first, not just black female, but first female millionaires. Imagine the step from where she was to where she went. And I read that in a biography when I was a kid, and I thought, why am I feeling sorry for myself? It's nothing compared to that. It's nothing. And so it gave me the encouragement. So I just read a bunch of biographies that said, okay, do this, do that. And what I noticed about Madam C.J. Walker and Henry Ford and other people was they had a way of protecting themselves from the animosity of the world around them. So it could be parents who say, like to Henry Ford, like, what are you thinking about? You need to become a lawyer. Or Madam C.J. Walker, don't be crazy. You just marry, get pregnant, have a child. That's your job in life. And they all said, no, 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 I'm not listening to this. And so they all had this kind of technique. And I now today modernize it and I call it, the bell jar technique. And it was first proposed, I first heard it described this way by a self-help guy called Jack Black, a Scottish guy. And he said that he taught it to a golfer, a famous golfer, who was up against Jack Nicklaus, who was everyone's favorite. And so he was the unpopular guy. He was the rookie. And he was affected by the animosity around the golf course. Seve Ballesteros was the guy's name. He's from my era. Many people might not have heard of him. He unfortunately died of a brain tumor some time ago. But he went from being quite good, quite promising, to being a star, to being an open winner and a major tournament winner. And the reason he gave for that was that Jack Black taught him to imagine this bell jar descending from the sky and covering him completely, and everybody's animosity bouncing off the like bulletproof glass and turning to dust. And he credits doing that with him being able to get over that little bit of a hump where he was quite good but not good enough, and actually winning and feeling good about winning. And then, of course, Jack Nicklaus came up, shook his hand, gave him a hug, said, I'm so proud of you. He never expected that, but it came because of this bell jar technique. So I started to use that in my life because at school, getting bullied, getting name called, we didn't have running water at some times during the year. And so people called me smelly and all this kind of stuff. And I probably was, but one can let that affect oneself. My teachers wrote me off because I didn't speak their language, so I couldn't follow. And so I wasn't stupid, but I just couldn't. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And so I ended up kind of self-teaching myself, but I did it all through wearing this bell jar. Like, I can't let these people affect me anymore because I think I'm a good guy. I think I'm okay. I don't think I have two heads. I think I'm all right. And so I want more. I want better. And I noticed this because my mum was really strong like this. So my dad had given up on life and he'd let the world affect him and he'd just given up. My mum was given 6 months to live when I was 7. And I remember watching her looking up to the sky. She had a religious beliefs, and she looked up to the sky and she said to her version of God, "You don't tell me when to die, I decide. And I'm not dying till my kids are grown up." That was so inspiring for me because later on in life, I learned the bell jar technique, but I remembered then, I've seen my mum use it when I was a kid. She's not getting affected by this and she's going to survive. And she was supposed to be dead by the time I was 8. She didn't die till I was 22, just about to turn 22. And I was the last to leave, last to be married. And so the last where she kind of could turn around and say, all right, my job is done. Those two were married early. He waited 5 years to get married. Anyway, but I saw the effect of the bell jar in my mother, and it inspired me for the rest of my life. So then when I found the kind of technique of it, that's what I've been teaching in everything that I do. In that we can protect ourselves from the negative thoughts and opinions and words of other people around us. And once we do that, it changes everything, because we stop diminishing ourselves and we start to believe in ourselves again, like we did when we were 5. Remember when we were 5 and someone said, "What you want to be when you grow up?" And we go, "I'm going to be a ninja or an astronaut or something." And we believed it because it was so powerful. And then over time, that gets kind of beaten out of us by school and parents, not maliciously, just life, school and parents and life itself. And then so to get that back by using a very simple technique like the bell jar is incredibly powerful.
Wow. I always like to remind myself how much more difficult has been, and it's been the process of unlearning everything that they taught us before, rather than actually what we learn. Because I don't know, after so many years of school and studying, I've been really like under so much stress that now learning is almost like an addiction.
Mm.
But unlearning what the wrong things, that in the way you realize that they don't make sense, it's so much more painful. So i'm I have another question, which now comes a little bit more on the technique that you like that you teach and that you use, I guess, every day in your life, which is, I would say, some people call it manifestation, aspiration, projection. I don't know exactly if you have a specific term beside the title of your book, but I have a lot of founders that, and I include myself like a couple of years ago in this position, that they're too rational, they're too scientific for this stuff. And now that I'm there, that I can really see the effects, I sometimes still have hard times to explain it, because I try to, like, I literally ask, do you want a scientific explanation? We can talk about quantum physics. Or do you want a spiritual explanation? We can talk about energy. It's the same thing. But how do you explain it? How do you make people understand that they still have, the rational kind of shield on them, and they don't really want to let in something else that it seems a little bit too woo woo?
I educated myself to the point where I actually somehow, and I still to this day don't know how, I ended up with a degree in physics, a degree in radiation physics and nuclear medicine. I did it. I don't know. I did just go into the library and reading books, and I ended up doing it. So I have a fascination with how and why things work, and for some people that's really boring. They just don't want to know. They just want the technique. Give me the tool, I'll use it, and that's fine. But I like to know how and why things work. And that's why I come into this personal development space, because I'm not a fan of personal development or self help, because a lot of it does feel like new age fantasy, like ideology and woo woo and stuff like that. But I agree with everything they all say, which is kind of funny. It's almost ironic. Like I can read Law of Attraction and say yes, that makes sense, but you haven't told people why. So I'm the guy that comes in and says, okay, I'll tell you why and how it works. And for some people, that's valuable. For some people, that really matters. And so I'll say, okay, you no longer have to believe in the feel good ideology. Just follow the tools, because now you understand how and why these things work. So when it comes to, I make a point in my life of never using that terrible M word that you just used, but I'll use it this one time for you. Manifestation. If anyone ever hears me say the word manifest, they are allowed to shoot me. Okay, because it's a horrible word. It's like using the word meditation. It's like it conjures up this whole idea. And I meditate and I manifest, but I don't use those words because it conjures up all that woo-woo stuff. So the beauty of my scientific approach is the definition of science. Okay, so I follow the laws of energy, and they're irrefutable. Doesn't matter whether you believe them or not, they exist, and you can fight them, and good luck to you. Or you can work with them, and you'll have a really joyful, fun time. And the laws of energy say that all the energy that's ever been created already exists. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. You can't create energy, and you can't destroy energy. This is really profound when you think about it, because we're made of energy. So if you can't destroy energy, it means we never die. So it has a lot of profound implications. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only converted from one form into another. So you can go back in time, you can hear Einstein say it, Reich say it, everyone says the same thing. And it sounds really great and it looks really great, and you get a big tick mark on your exam when you use this phrase. Okay, well done, you understand physics. And it's kind of a bit of a nonsense. But here's another definition. Magic is the transforming of energy from one form to another within the laws of nature under the power of will. So here we have two definitions from two different aspects of life. The magician, Aleister Crowley, who had a bad reputation, but actually I think was a genius. And all geniuses get bad reputations. And here we have the scientific, and they say the same thing. They say exactly the same thing, that energy has its laws of working, and we can't fight against it. It can only be transformed from one form into another form within the laws of nature and under the power of will. And so when we know that, we can say, if that's true, and if I go with it, then what if I play with energy in a slightly different way? And I decide to convert it from one form into another form. And how am I going to do that? And so we dip into other scientific aspects in trevorgblake.com, which is the website. You can get all these free. It's all free. It's all free. So you can get all these freebies. And what we dip into, we say, okay, we know that energy can only be converted. We know that time is an illusion. So what if we imagine that which we want as already received? That would be magic. And when we do that, it turns up, it shows up. And so, one of the reasons I'm in this business is for authenticity. So I didn't even write my book until after I'd sold my first company. But before I started my first company, I set an intention, and the intention was this. So you have to listen to it really carefully, because the language is important. I have sold my company for at least $100 million. And I set that intention before I even knew what the company was going to be. I had an idea. There's something I wanted to fix. I had no idea what to do next. And I had $200, which isn't a lot to start with. 6 years later, I sold it for $105.5 million. That's a great story. But that's just converting one form of energy, which is the desire and the idea, into another form of energy, which is the physical, I'm going to use this word again, manifestation of that idea. Oh, I hate myself for using that word. So the turning of energy from one form, which is just an idea or imagination, into another form, which is a physical experience of it, is that simple. And I think a lot of people, I think today we prize the complicated and the technological aspects of life, and we tend to a little bit ignore the simplicity and the magic of the simplicity. So it is that simple, and that's all I do in my life every single day. Is I imagine my success as already achieved, whatever that is, relationships, business, finance, whatever I choose to focus on. I imagine what it's like to feel it already here, and it shows up. And it is that simple. Sounds like woo-woo, sounds like new age, sounds like all these self-help gurus and everything, but it's actually scientific. And I think when people realize it's scientific, it kind of opens up something different inside of themselves that they hadn't seen before, which is, okay, so really I'm just a biological computer converting this into that. That's it.
I've spent the last year asking top founders for their secret sauce, and the honest answer, there isn't just one. Yet, the internet keeps selling us a one recipe fits all. At Whole Grain Wisdom, we are building the tools to help you craft your own recipe so that your mind, body, and energy are fully aligned and you can perform under pressure without burning out. Our recipe is very simple. This podcast shares raw stories from founders who really had the courage to jump off the hamster wheel and rebuild their operating system without hassle. The newsletter is where I go deeper into the science and protocols behind re-engineering flow and performance. And ultimately, we are running founders-only retreats around the world to create the space for real transformation. And to be honest, that's where really the magic happens. Whole Grain Wisdom is where science meets ancient wisdom. It's where we become quantum founders, the entrepreneurs led by inner energy and flow, and not finite willpower. If this resonates with you, then join us at wholegrainwisdom.com. Okay, now back to the show. Yeah. Yeah, well, for me, the the journey to get to this conviction has been quite long, and I definitely opened up completely to these workings once the science part was in the conversation. So thanks for sharing this. I In my journey, when it comes to this specific topic, the more that I studied, the more that I realized that yes, today it's becoming kind of like popular, probably YouTube kind of videos and so on and so forth. But very, very successful people use it all the time.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you can answer this, if you know specific stories of very, very successful people that work within these frameworks. Because, you know, I keep having, I open LinkedIn and I keep reading posts about hustle life, hustle culture. Oh yes, we work 996 now. This is the new fashion. You work 9 to 9 p.m. 6 days a week because that's the only way that you're gonna make it in the new age of AI and whatever. This is all bullshit,
Mhm.
and it's just gonna bring you and push you to burnout. So why is it possible that that's becoming so popular among the young and probably like feared of missing out generation versus the people that really get this stuff, that really are successful in material terms beside the whatever personal journey and so on. So can you share a little bit more about this? Like how are you as a 300 million plus exited founder walk on your own? Like what's your personal network look like, and what do you talk about? Do you talk about this stuff, and how do they perceive it?
Okay, so lots of questions in that. So let me unpack them one by one. So no, I don't talk about it. Money is energy. I'm British, so I'm allowed catchphrases. So I call it, and I apologize if you have a vomit bag, you might want to use it right now. I call it monergy. Okay, so monergy is just money converted into another form. It's fine. So there's nothing. So I try to help people improve their relationship with money. It's one of the things I do because a lot of people have a bad relationship and they think it's something external, and it's actually internal. So when we figure out that it's just something we work with and play with, oh my, the magic just switches on. So instead of teaching people financial independence, which I get emails from people saying, well, how much is it? What's financial independence? How many millions is it? I say, no, 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 no. What does independence mean to you? Okay, so for you, it might be having a Lamborghini. For someone else, it might be working in the garden. What does independence mean for you? When you're happy and you don't have to worry about electricity bill. Then we'll figure out what the budget is for that. Then we'll figure out a mechanism to create that budget on an annual basis. It's so easy. So financial independence and all that already kind of done and taken care of. No one has to worry about that. As far so remind me again what I'm supposed to be answering because I've answered a completely different question. Then.
Yeah, no worries. It's like I go. That's the beauty and the
I love these
challenges of
conversations.
a free flow.
Yeah, fireside chat is what it feels like. So I'm asking,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so you and I are sat drinking a beer or a wine. I imagine it's wine for you. So we're drinking wine, and so what was the question again?
So
Give me one.
there's so many people using these techniques that are really successful in life,
Oh, okay, the
and
hustle. Right, the hustle.
and we keep promoting the fucking hustle. How come?
No, so the thing is, don't be against that though, Alessandro. Don't be against the hustle because you can be successful whether you hustle or don't hustle. It's a choice.
Mhm.
And so the difference I see so I have friends who hustle. I have friends who are really successful entrepreneurs and successful artists who hustle. And here's the difference. My hustling friends are on their third marriage. Their dogs don't recognize them. They're on antidepressants or alcohol. My friends who've learned a different way of doing the same thing, so they understand how the brain works. So they understand the neurology that we can't hustle. Actually, physically, it's difficult for us to do. We get diminishing returns. So you work 2 hours, stop. 2 hours of doing meditation, walking in the woods, hanging out with your family, having a beautiful lunch, whatever it may be, but relaxation, and then 2 hours again, and then off again. When people work that lifestyle, I call it the practical magic of the 5-hour workday. Again, it's a free webinar that's a PDF available on the website. And I wrote it during COVID because so many people were switching over from the corporate world and into the home world, and no teaching about the difference. And it's so different, as you know, it's so different. You get burned out so quickly working at home without the distractions. And so the practical magic of the 5-hour workday was kind of how we separate ourselves from the hustle to the balance. And so I'm a fan of success with balance. Why am I a fan? Not because I think it's any better or any worse, but because I am by nature a lazy bastard. I am very lazy. And I like my quiet time, and I like lying in a hammock, and I like playing with my dogs, and I like working with animals, and I like walking in the woods, and I love all this stuff, but it doesn't make me any money. So I've had to find a way of balancing between 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And so both work perfectly well. But I am an advocate and an ambassador for working in a more disciplined sense. You need discipline for this, right? So, um, I'll work from 9 to 11, and it doesn't matter what's happening at 11. If I'm on like the most important Zoom call of my life, it stops at 11. And then I'm away, I'm gone. I'm going for a walk for an hour, no phone, no distractions. And that's where the magic happens. So to answer the first part of your question, which was who do I know who lives this way? Everybody who's successful. And the reason I know that is those people I know who are successful live this way, but also I've studied all the habits of what makes people successful and not successful, both in autobiographies, but also there's loads of books out there. Like it's, the habits of the wealthy, or the way of life of the successful warrior, whatever the book title is. And I never read a whole book from first word to last word. I just get the sense of it. And so the sense of it is that most people who understand the need for balance don't watch 5 hours of TV a day. They don't sit on a couch eating ice cream. They're out in nature walking, and that's where the magic happens. So now, when I first got into this when I was a kid, people were embarrassed to say, oh, I meditate or I go in nature or stuff like that. It was almost like being called out of the closet a little bit. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you had Richard Branson saying, the reason I bought an island is so I can get great ideas. Because the only place I get great ideas is when I'm on the island and not being distracted by anybody. And there's no phone. And I'm just sitting there looking at the ocean. I think, why didn't I think of that 2 years ago? And Ray Dalio, the billionaire hedge fund investor, has come out now. It's like he's a confessor now. It's like he says, I confess, I've been meditating all my life. Well, why didn't you tell us that ages ago? No. But when I read all the biographies of people like Madam C.J. Walker and Henry Ford and hundreds of others, they all had their own version of stopping the hustle. So Madam C.J. Walker would sit in a tree and just look at the horizon. And that's where she came up with the idea for her hair tonic, which is what launched her to be successful. Because she was so stressed, malnourished, that her hair fell out. And in those days, that was very common for people born of slaves, because the women were going bald, and everyone had their own version of hair tonic. And nothing worked, but she nailed it. She figured it out, and she went door to door selling hair tonic. Went from success to success, and then used her success to changing the laws of the way people were treated in that environment and that life. Wonderful story, and I encourage everybody to read it. It will just inspire you to say, why am I complaining? I've got to do something. Why have I wasted 50 years? Let's get going. Henry Ford used to go back to his own farm. It was a rundown farm. It was still there, but it was like just a broken wood. And there was an old rocking chair that his dad used to sit in, and it was also broken down. And he would sit in the rocking chair and he'd rock and rock and rock. And at the time, a lot of people think, Henry Ford was the guy that, invented the car and it's a linear arrow to success. I mean, he went bankrupt 4 times before he was ever successful. And to be able to cope with that, to be able to cope with what other people describe as failure, but he just described as I just learned something. He would sit in the rocking chair and he would do his version of meditation. I call it taking quiet time because I don't actually like the word meditation. It's very close to manifest to me. So I like the word taking quiet time, because all it is, what Ray Dalio does and Richard Branson and all these amazing people, Elon Musk, all right? Uh, Elon Musk is, so if anyone's read his biography recently, his new biography, phenomenal biography. I hope to meet the guy one day, because I live a completely different life to him. And I don't want to be the multi-billionaire that he is, because I don't want that pressure. I know my limits and I know who I am, and what I want for me is something slightly different. But I really admire the fact that when he hits a brick wall, what does he do? He does nothing. He sits in a dark corner, curled up in a fetal position, until he comes up with the solution. And that's meditation. That's just the same as me sitting in a chair, or somebody wearing a purple kaftan sitting on a sharp rock at the top of a mountain in Tibet or something. It's all the same thing. It's just whatever floats your boat, that's what you do. And I like taking quiet time, which basically is just sit in a chair for 20 minutes, because I'm a lazy guy. So
Wow, amazing. Did you get there? So you talked about the biographies, you talked about the physics. Was there like was has it been like a stable progress over time, or was there ever a time where you really like said, okay, now I really get it?
no, it's a great question, Alessandro, because I'm still learning, right? I'm still like 5 years old. I'm trying to figure out how to be that ninja. And I haven't figured it out yet, and hopefully I never grow up properly. Uh, so what I try to go over to people is that when people like us go on a podcast, or we go online, or we go on YouTube or something, or we're on a stage or something like that, everybody looks to us and thinks, okay, those guys have nailed it. They've got it. They know the secrets. They're perfect. What they don't understand is we're just as effing flawed as everybody else. But we figured out the tools, right? The tools and techniques that can help us get over our own flawedness. They can get us, like I'll hit a brick wall, and I start to feel like a fraud, because here I'm telling people how to be multimillionaires, and here I am thinking that no one wants to buy my company. What's wrong? What have I done wrong? And then I figure it out, and I use my tools and techniques that I teach in the transformation experience, which is, okay, when we hit these walls, this is what we do. We do this mirror work, we do this pump up the volume, we do all of these little techniques that are based in science, and it gets us through this next phase, and then we come out of it recharged, and we go, okay, I got it now. Off I go. I can solve this, and that's better than hustling. That's better than sitting in front of a computer trying to figure it out. Which will just burn everybody out. So at no point in my life has it ever been a straight line, ever. And I wouldn't want it to be, because that would be so boring. And if you read any biography, there's not one that is a straight line from I was born today and I ended up here. It's like I'm born today, don't know what I'm doing, don't know where I'm going. What the hell are my parents doing to me? Where school hates me. What's going? It's all squirrely, and we figure it out with the tools and techniques to get us through to the next step, to get us to the next point, to get us to this point. And that's a beautiful thing. I think, if I was to die today and I was to go to some place in the universe and somebody said, oh, welcome, how was your life? I'd say that was a blast. It was like a theme park. I want to do it again. Because when we go to a theme park, everyone has the same experience. They get on the biggest roller coaster, and they're going up the hill, the slow chuck, 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 and they all look really bored. They're like, oh, this is really boring. Can't wait till we get to the top. Then it'll take off. I'm sure it's going to be good when we get there. And then it takes over and it goes down, and they're all just screaming like, no, get me off. This is crazy. I can't stand it anymore. And then it goes up the next hill. And it's like, oh, it's boring. It's boring. And then down again we go. And I think life is like that. It's so roller coaster is kind of a corny way to describe it, but I actually enjoy the chug chug up the hill as much as I enjoy the rush down the hill or down the slope. I mean, I think that's magic, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. And all the time, I'm worrying and I'm doubting and I'm full of feeling not worthy and all that kind of stuff. But I have the tools and techniques to help me stop myself and kind of redirect. And when I do that, That's all it takes is this tiny change. So no one needs to become a saint. No one needs to be a genius. If you read Elon Musk's biography, you'll think that's the most screwed up man I've ever heard about in my whole life. And look what he's achieved. Look what he's done with his short life. He's only 50. He's got another 50 years to go. What can that man possibly achieve in the next 50 years? That's incredible. I don't want to be him. I don't want to live like him. I don't want his personality. I don't want his relationships. I'm not here to judge or criticize anyone. I'm just saying that he's exactly the same as you and I, in that he's figuring it out as he goes along, but he's got the tools and techniques.
You brought me back for a couple of seconds, reminding me the anxiety that I had when it came to trusting whatever is going to happen. Because I feel like in order to be able to enjoy the up and the down of the roller coaster, I don't know, you kind of have to have a internal belief that everything is going to be all right. And I feel in the world of today, especially when you go out in social media, you're brainwashed to think exactly the opposite. You always have to worry about the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So you don't enjoy the up, you don't enjoy the down, and then at some point you miss the top, and it's like, oh shoot, was I supposed to be enjoying that top? So okay, next one. How? I mean, I get the tools, because for me, I got into meditation because for me it was mostly like breathing exercises, because I had so many panic attacks that I could not end the day at work. I was shutting myself into what we called a panic room, because it was like an insulated meeting room inside of our co-working space. And while everybody was having lunch, I was getting there and putting my headphones and just doing breathing exercises. And I need to thank the Spotify people. I think they were actually British as well. They put up those very calming up and down, 7 seconds up, 7 seconds down. And that really saved me at the time. But as you said, it's not like a movie. It's not like, oh, I figured it out, boom, fast forward 50 years, you're perfect. No, there is still the 50 years to be done. So for anyone that is in panic, or for anyone that doesn't even realize the panic they're in because it got to the normality of everyday life. Oh, that's how it is. I stopped gluten for 40 days, and after the first 5 days, after 11 years, I woke up in the morning and I did not have brain fog. And I didn't even realize that you could live without brain fog. It was 12 years with that. For me, that was normal. So for the people that are there, how do you even know that you need to get out? And how do you stop the anxiety? How do you start the belief? Because in your book, you say you don't really have to believe in the method. You just need to do it. I agree. But at the same time, believing makes it so much faster.
If you know that something works, you no longer need to believe, and that's a fantastic feeling. So you move
because you believe that it works.
Maybe you move to a sense of knowing. You know it's going to work, right? So it's like it's like we learn like this as children. The first time as a child, you put your hand on a hot oven, it's hot. You don't do it again. So we know. So you're trying to get to a sense of knowing, and that's done through practice and tools and techniques, as you say, and all of that. I'm going to go on a little tangential side here, because I'm somebody, a little knowledge is dangerous, right? So I'm also a medical guy, so I've been in the medical field most of my life. It astounds me the number of people who think they have panic attacks who don't actually have panic attacks. It astounds me the number of people who think they're suffering stress and anxiety and all the rest of it, who don't have any of that. But at the same time, the reason I can say they don't have any of that is they've never taken the time out to appreciate that they're a soul living in a vehicle. And most people have vehicles, and they will take their vehicles for an annual checkup, and they will replace the tires when they need replacing, and they will put oil in when the oil runs out and all kind of thing. But most people don't do that for themselves. They don't physically take care of themselves. And so for anyone, first of all, so panic attacks are a real thing. I understand it. I'm married to someone who was convinced that she had panic attacks until I met her, and then told her actually she has low blood sugar, not panic attacks, and now it's all gone away. So I would say to everybody, so you know this, right? So I'd say to anybody, treat your vehicle with total respect. So this is the vehicle, this illusion of my body. Treat it with total respect. Make sure it's really functioning well. So first of all, check your bloods on a regular basis. Check your hormone balance on a regular basis. Check your blood sugar. Make sure that that's all in order. You want to be sure that your vehicle is as good as it can possibly be right now before you try to diagnose anything you think you have. What most people do is find that, oh, one of my wheels has fallen off, and then they treat that. Or, the paintwork needs fixing, and they don't treat the cause of what's made the paintwork fail, and they just repaint it. So to anyone who's listening here who feels those things, treat yourself with respect. Spend a little bit of money, get in your hormones checked, make sure you're balanced, everything's in all good order. I personally have experienced that. I'm a cancer survivor from 1989. I was given 6 months to live in 1989. Sorry, 1989. So I was given 6 months to live, stage 3 teratoma. And I figured out that actually I can fix this myself. And then, and here I am. So apparently I did, I think, at least for a while. I had a wife who, my late wife, was married to her for 38 years. She had endometriosis very early on in her life and had to have a hysterectomy at only 29 years old. And her hormones were all over the place. So I know a lot about hormones from being her caregiver for a period of time. And I watched what happens when the hormones are not perfect, and when they're too high and when they're too low. I have a series of tin hats I used to wear to survive those days. And then when they balanced, I saw the difference in somebody who's struggling in life and somebody who's thriving. So my a key message to everybody is don't just assume that it's your mind. Don't just assume that it's your heart and you're panicking. Make sure that you really are physically at the best you can be at this point in time. And then if it still continues, that's when you seek help for that one individual thing that's happening in your life. So that's very, very important. When it's real, when panic attacks are real, it's the most horrible thing in the world because you feel like you're about to die. And you, at that point, okay, how do you overcome the panic attack when a panic attack is real? Then you need the tools and techniques that are going to help you mentally and soully be proud of yourself again and feel worthy again. And so what most people are like is what I call brain forward. So everything's here, and we're all analytical, and we're all thinking. And what most people aren't taught is that the heart sends more signals to the brain than the other way around. And the solar plexus sends more signals to the heart and the brain than both together. So you have in your soul here, you have what I call the torso wand, which is where you're able to balance between thinking and not thinking too much, feeling but not feeling too deeply, and intuitively knowing but not letting that rule. So you balance intuition, feeling, and analytical thought. And when you get the balance right, and this is in the transformation experience, when you get the balance right, there's nothing in the world that can stop you being the very best version of yourself. And those things that we used to think of as panic attacks, or in my case, teratoma, whatever it is, they just disappear. They just go. A lot of self-help gurus use that horrible catchphrase, dis-ease, but actually it makes sense. It does make sense. I don't like to use it any more than manifestation, but it does make sense that when we're uneasy, we can create these physical manifestations of that which we're missing. And when we look after our physical vehicle, get that all in tune, feels good, right? I mean, most people will look at me and guess my age, but they'd be way off. When we get it, you have no idea. So the grey hair is a clue. So and I don't want to offend any of your uh, viewers and listeners, but I'm a guy of a certain age, but I have amazing sex every single day, and I meet guys who are half my age who can't remember the last time they had sex, but they don't look after themselves. They don't take care of themselves. So get the physical, get the body, male or female, doesn't matter. Get the body feeling right and balanced, and then the rest will take care of itself, I guess is my message. Anyway, for what it's worth,
Yeah,
hopefully that's useful to somebody. I don't know.
I do really hope. I do really hope. For me, some time ago during COVID, I really hit rock bottom with the body, and after going through, I call it biohacking journey mostly because it's easy to understand, but of course it was a little bit more complex than that. And I don't remember how long it took, but I woke up a morning, and again, this is kind of like, well, let depending on who's the public, but I got a boner in the morning for the first time in very long time, and I was like, wait a second, like weren't only teenagers having boners in the morning? Just for the male audience here, if you don't have a boner in the morning, it's the first single clear sign that something is off with your metabolism as a male.
I totally agree. I completely and did that when I said I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And I've been married 3 years to Jess, who my late wife introduced me to after she died. And I've had to explain this to her. Like, what's going on? I said, so in England we call it EMET, it's called early morning erection time. And so when you're off balance and that doesn't happen, right? As a man, you just know, you think something's off. Something's off. That's not right. It's supposed to be, because your testosterone is at the highest first thing in the morning. So it's supposed to happen. It's a sign that everything's okay. Um, I had to explain this, that this is what's happening. I apologize. Can't do anything about it.
When there's a healthy male in the room, then that's what happens. Absolutely. So, Trevor, let's see if we have time for the two questions. Because first, we already talked a little bit about all of your steps, all of your protocols, or mostly like the tools that you mentioned. I like to ask this question at the end of the conversation, making first of all a reminder of who a founder really is when it comes to like entrepreneurship. The more that I interview people like you, the more that I go into this topic of performance, the more I realize we are like high performance athletes, but with a very clear difference, which is we often lack a support team for ourselves. If you're into sports, you know that if you want to win the Olympics, you're going to get into a club, into a federation. They're going to give you teams for nutrition, mental health, performance, rehearsing, whatever technique ever possible to make you a winner. Founders think they can do it by themselves, that they don't need help. So when it comes to you today, or even your dream support team of the next few years that you're now planning to build, who are 5 seats that you can fill with? You can fill them with people, you can fill them with techniques, you can fill them with just concepts or values. Like what makes you every day at, let's call it peak performance or balance, as you said?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. I don't think anyone's ever asked. I've done over 200 podcasts over the last few years. I think that's the first time I've been asked like brilliant questions. So thank you. Let me address it back to front. So first of all, it is a fact that founders are the lifeblood of every economy in the world, but they're the least supported, not only by environment, but by governments. So when a major bank looks like it's going to fail, the government will come in with wheelbarrows full of cash and bail it out, right? When you and I look like we're going to fail, well, you're on your own, guy. You're on your own. Good luck. And so we have to take personal pride first and foremost. So this is your first support point, is you, right? This is you. So and right now we're in the most amazing time in life where there are actually more female entrepreneurs starting up than male entrepreneurs. First time ever, I think 55 to 45 now percent. And that's fantastic. And that's because of the power of intuition. It's so important right now. Because everything's lean and you have to make instant decisions. So women are thriving. And I think that's fantastic. It's going to make it for a much better entrepreneurial environment
Agree.
going forward for all of us, much more supportive, I think, than it's
With
ever
a
been.
wife that is an entrepreneur herself, I can totally agree, and I understood so much about how to do business in a different way.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And so I felt like a student at the knees of someone very wise for 38 years, and now for the last 3 years. And so first of all, the main source of support is oneself, right? Trust oneself, trust one's intuition, love oneself. I know it sounds kind of new agey and everything, but if you don't like yourself, it's going to be pretty hard for an investor to like you. It's going to be pretty hard for your customers to like you. You got to like yourself. Okay, you got to believe that you're doing a great thing. And so that's number one. Number two, and I think you already just said it. Number two is surround yourself with people that make you want to be a better person tomorrow than you were today. And that can be a partner. It could be a friend. It could be family that you respect. It could be your dogs. It could be whatever you need that makes you want to be a better person tomorrow than you were today. And you'll never ever feel like you're on your own. I have been a lone wolf in my entrepreneurial career. I always recommend that so at a point in my life where if I start another company, well, I'm going to start another company with Jess. So when we start our next company called House of Von Blake, which is a media company, we already have it written out on the back of a napkin. But when we started, we know we have enough cash to do it ourselves. We can do it on our own. But that's dumb. All right, that's really dumb to do it on your own. So it's far better to have a great idea, go out and get investors, because the investors don't just bring money, even if you don't need the money. Investors will bring money, you get diluted, yada yada. It's just life, just get on with it. But the investors come in and they bring a network and connections and lifelong friendships. I am still friends with the guys that bought my first company. I am still best buddies. In fact, I was supposed to go to his daughter's wedding. Something happened, I couldn't. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. But a guy who's the first ever business partner I worked with. So it's really important to bring in other people, even if financially you don't feel you need them, because they will bring so much mental, emotional, and heartfelt and torso one support, but also connections to people who've been there before you, people who know what they're doing, people who've figured it out. So you don't have to figure it out anymore. You can just say, "Oh, what did you do?" And they said, "Oh, we chose blue instead of green." So you can't go blue, and you don't have to figure out why green was a bad idea. So that's a really good way of getting a support mechanism as a founder, is to bring in people that you probably don't think you need because you think you can go on your own. But going on your own is so boring and lonely. I've tried it and didn't enjoy it. And so the most fun I've had, even though the investors who've come in have irritated me like crazy, and I have driven them mad with my stubbornness and all the rest of it. And we've had big rows, and we've got drunk at night drinking whiskey, never agreeing on what the strategy should be. That's life, and it makes being a founder so much more fulfilling than if you're just trying to do it on your own. So I don't recommend going alone. I recommend bringing some investors in, and enjoying the ups and downs, the roller coaster, and what that brings.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Trevor, for this amazing conversation. You brought me back to the past and also kind of like lead me in the future. Sometimes it was really great. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure. Great questions, and absolutely. I feel like we're at the fireside, and we've had just a great chat. So that's good.
Amazing.
The only
Bye
thing that
bye.
was missing is the wine, by the way. We should next time do it with wine.
I have a little bit of sencha tea here that I brought from Japan, but unfortunately, I didn't suggest you to bring any.